Always something.
What? What? What is your problem? What?
All right. Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the Laser Boy podcast. This is going to be in conjunction with the A24 guys, wherein I talk about the films of production company and distribution company A24 and their TV shows and films. This is going to be in conjunction with that as well. This is going to be the Beef podcast. And I'm here with my co-host from another podcast we do, the High Fidelity TV podcast, where we talked about the Hulu High Fidelity series. My name is the Laser Boy, Joseph No, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Edwin Lee. How you doing, Edwin?
Good as always. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's very cool that we, found another project to talk about. Beef seemed to be, a no-brainer. We're always talking about the lack of representation, right, of Asian Americans in cinema and TV. I believe the last episode I had you on in the Laser Boy was best of the best. So we've come a long way from, Asians being depicted in martial arts films. And so it's very cool to have you on here for this Beef series starring Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. Before that, let's plug some stuff. The Laser Boy, you can look at past episodes on the laserboy.wordpress.com. That's Laserboy with a Z. Email us at the laserboyblogger@gmail.com. And we have also a YouTube channel. Just type in the Laserboy with a Z. So, this is just going to be us talking about Beef, the series. Each episode will recap every episode of the series, so it's going to be 10 episodes. And, we wanted to talk about this because of, the Asian American representation, obviously, and because this is a damn good show, starring arguably two of the most,
Visible
Asian American
sure.
actors, right? So let me ask you to start off. I was about to call you Steven. Edwin, which is a character in the show, ironically. But what is your, connection, past works of Steven Yeun or Ali Wong?
Not much on the Ali Wong side, to be honest. I would say Steven Yeun, pretty much The Walking Dead. I was a big fan for a long time. Probably right up until the season where his character on the show dies. I think a lot of people jumped off at that point as well.
Yeah, quick spoiler warning for The Walking Dead there, but his character does die, but continue.
Yeah, so I know he was in other things like Minari, which was a big movie for him, but I didn't see that.
Also, I believe distributed by A24, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I'm not sure about the production company stuff, but yeah, I liked Steven Yeun. It was cool seeing an Asian character on The Walking Dead, and so yeah, that's about it.
Very cool. Yeah. Obviously, Steven Yeun. I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, and spoilers for The Walking Dead, but he dies twice in that show, and I remember one of the early seasons is like 5 or 6. Again, spoilers for The Walking Dead, but there was an episode where he gets like buried in a crowd of walkers, and it's the end of the episode, and we're to assume that he's being mauled, torn apart by the walkers, and he's screaming. We see like flesh being ripped apart, but it's very ambiguous. It's like cut to his face, cut to a close up of them ripping something up, and then we're to assume that he's dead.
Yeah.
And I remember being really affected by that when I watched it. Like maybe the next couple days, I may have been like mourning his death. I even like dreamt that he was still alive in The Walking
Yeah.
Dead in my dreams. So that's how much of a close connection I have with the Steven Yeun character. Glenn was his character's name in The Walking Dead, and it was a fake out. He survived. Again, spoilers, but
Oh, side note, I
yes, please.
think there should be like a statute of limitations
For
on
spoilers?
spoilers. 'Cause it's been a while, and if you haven't
Sure.
if anyone hasn't seen it,
But
they're probably
yeah,
not going to
yeah,
see it. So
you know, no,
I think
that's
we're
a good
okay,
point.
yeah, I think
But
we're
I still like to give
Sure,
spoiler warnings anyway. Just it's like a
courtesy.
yeah, definitely. Thank you
You're
so much.
very polite.
You know, we
very
are a
polite, Jim.
recap podcast. I don't want to
Sure.
offend anybody. And oh, they spoiled that show that it took me 10 years to watch. So, but good point. There should be a statute of limitations. So that's my connection to him. I also loved him on like he has a very funny bit on Conan where they go to like a
Oh
Korean
yeah,
spa.
uh-huh. Yep.
I love that so much. I watch that over and over. He's a great comedic actor. He's a dramatic actor first, but yeah, I think it's easier for dramatic actors to be comedic rather than the other way around. You know, it's really hard. Well, actually, sorry, it's easier for comedic actors to be dramatic, but
Yes.
he's the rare dramatic actor where he could be comedic as well. Um, and then Minari, is that how you pronounce it? Sorry, Minari.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry for mispronouncing that, but I also loved him in Burning, which is a South Korean independent film where upon he's like a really privileged like bored person who like has this strange like fetish slash compulsion where he likes to burn things and watch things like
Okay.
burn down. I'm completely generalizing that synopsis, but it's a fascinating character and personality that he plays. It's out of type. You know, he usually plays just like the aw shucks like
Yeah, the nice guy.
right, yeah,
Good
blue
guy.
collar working guy. Yeah, yeah. So it's nice to see him. You know, he has range, and I like seeing him in Burning. Um, Ailey Wong, I saw her stand up a long time ago on Netflix. Didn't make a huge impression on me, but I remember liking it. I think it was called like Baby Cobra or like
That sounds right.
Cobra Baby, something with a king cobra, some cobra thing. But I remember just liking her and liking the fact that there was a Vietnamese slash half Chinese comedian, and she was good too. So, and she was also in a couple of seasons of Fresh Off the Boat, and she also her and Stephen Yoon co-voice in Tuca and Birdie, which is from the creators of BoJack Horseman. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of Stephen Yeun. I'm a huge fan of A24, so been fans of them since Spring Breakers and Bling Ring, which I believe was one of the first. They were a distribution company before they became a production company, and they're pretty much like the standard for counter programming. Like for all the Marvel stuff, Star Wars, like the hard independent stuff that you see that's like not commercial
Yeah.
is what they do,
Yeah.
and they've pretty much been massively acclaimed since I think they won an Oscar for Moonlight,
Okay.
and then obviously this year for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yep.
They're a huge name now. I was watching an episode of Dave, the most recent one where Dave's friend Emma, a character in the show who's Asian American, is making a documentary about Dave, and then she's screening it for like a bunch of press people, close friends, and then one of the jokes of that was that the film was so good and so like counterculture and anti-pop that a representative of A24 says, "Hey, we're interested in acquiring this film." So that's how big that they're known for that.
Yeah.
So that's all preamble of saying, that's how it was on my radar. I saw A24, Netflix, Beef, Stephen Yeun,
Yeah.
Ali Wong. So I was really on board
It's-
from the get-go.
It's kind of like a a like an indie record label that you trust. You like, I like so many bands on there that if they put something out and you don't know the band, you trust the label. You're
Yep.
like, okay, it's gonna be good.
Right. No, that's like Sub Pop would be
Sure.
the best analogy for labels and record labels and production companies slash film distribution companies, right? So also in the TV realm, they actually got into it a little later. I think one of the first credits I saw on them was the Carmichael Show, which is I'm a huge fan of Gerard Carmichael. So that was on NBC, So that was like Rami is another one on Hulu, and then Euphoria is another great example of like the kind of mood first programming that they create. The Idol, another Sam Levinson slash. It's getting a lot of headlines right now for being very, I don't know, misogynistic and very. It's been in the headlines, starring The Weeknd and co-created by The Weeknd.
Okay.
So cool. Yeah, that's all. Whoa, nobody got shot. Hopefully, I think that was
Fireworks.
Fireworks, yeah. Okay, so before we start, we're gonna recap. Each episode. We're not gonna spoil anything beyond that. Of course, we're gonna spoil things in the episode. So if you haven't seen episode 1, please tune out and watch it before we listen. So Beef is a 2023 American black comedy created by Korean director Lee Seung-jin for Netflix. I'm reading the premise here from Wikipedia. A near accident in a parking lot turns two strangers into enemies. The tit-for-tat relationship that develops leads to escalating acts of revenge as Amy and Danny learn about each other's identities and families and become more and more involved in each other's lives. The series stars Steven Yeun, Ali Wong, Joseph Lee, Young Mazino, who's I think one of the nice up-and-comers here, David Cho, and Patty Yasutake, recurring Maria Bello, Ashley Park, so on and so forth. I really love the cast here. And anything else you want to say about the cast before we start, Edwin?
Not really at the moment,
Okay.
but I'm sure as we talk about certain characters, things will come up.
I think Young Mazzino as Paul is a breakout, and I really enjoyed his performance. I really identify with his kind of closed off demeanor. Like he's almost like you can tell like the generational conflict. But we'll get there we'll get to that when we get there. So, all right, so let's get started. That was a brief preamble to the series before we get into the recap of episode 1, which is called "The Birds Don't Sing; They Screech in Pain." Do you know what that is referring to, Edwin?
I do not.
Okay, so I believe it is from, and me and my friend quote this a lot from Werner Herzog. It's called the documentary "The Burden of Dreams." I'm going to play a small clip here.
Of course, there's a lot of misery, but it is the same misery that is all around us. The trees here are in misery and the birds are in misery. I don't think they sing, they just screech in pain.
I mean, it's not meant to be funny. It's just an inside joke between me and my friend that we always kind of...
So you had heard that?
I heard that
or you
quote.
Watched that movie or saw that before?
You
recognize the reference.
I saw it as a meme on like Facebook or something, but I just remember that quote. The birds don't sing, they screech in pain. I can't do his German accent, but what do you make? I think that's a documentary about nature and
sure,
how it's seemingly beautiful and exotic, and they're singing. But to us, it sounds like
sure that there's pain inside beings that is real and it's there, but people might not recognize it or see it from the outside.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. It's like like the suburban ennui looks so beautiful from the outside,
Sure.
right? Like I don't want to like the collective we like lower class people see it and like, oh, marvel at the beauty, but then they're really like in pain, like they're in existential pain.
Sure.
You know, we can't see it.
And
It looks marvelous to us.
and we'll get into the specifics
Yeah.
of Paul and Amy's
Right. Yeah.
inner dynamics, but yes, it describes both of them well.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually like that quote. When I saw that quote, I'm like, oh, again, I was already hooked from, the marketing, but I'm like, I saw that quote and I'm like, I'm in. Like, this is really cool. So cool. That is the show. The episode starts with Danny. He's in a Forster store, and that's going to be very relevant for later. He's trying to return some hibachi grills, which he's done before, and he's just it's like a Larry David or Seinfeld moment. It's like this minutia of everyday life. He's just like watching a customer and an employee just chat about nonsense, right? And you're like waiting in line, watching him chit chat. I've been in that situation before. I'm like in a hurry, and then they're talking about their day, and like, could you hurry it up in your mind, right?
And you see it in both characters, Danny and Amy. You see them surrounded by a very unsympathetic world where the cashier is very unsympathetic towards Danny, doesn't care. When Danny's in a very difficult, no, it's not difficult, but a very delicate state of mind, and and the thing he needs most is someone to care. And we see, when we see Amy, she's surrounded by an unrelenting, unforgiving, unfeeling life as well. Where
we'll get to Amy when we get to that scene. But yeah, no, that's a good point. That I like your idea of you're juxtaposing them already. But yeah, let's focus on Danny right now. Yeah, at the same time I'm like, it works both ways. If you're in a shit mood to the employee, yeah, it's their job to be bright and accommodating. But at the same time, if you're copying a shit attitude with them, like, they don't really have an obligation to be nice to you either. You know what I mean?
In all fairness to the Danny character, Danny, from what I recollect from that scene, perhaps because he's gone in to return these items before that, maybe
times. Yeah, he probably
the cashier's maybe tired of it.
Yeah.
But in that particular moment, Danny really doesn't do anything wrong. He just he doesn't have his receipt. That's a good point, yeah. But
I think I'm speaking from personal experience. Yeah. I'm always like, every time I have a return, I'm like, hey, how you doing? I don't want to have them give me problems. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just not for me or something. I'm always like, just.
And I'm sure you're prepared with all your receipts and this. And
that. I want it to go smoothly, so I don't want to be like, here, come on. I don't want to give them a shit attitude, because I want it to, the transaction to go smoothly. So I'm aware of that too. I think that's, more of a personal thing. I'm more empathetic towards cashiers and employees. And again, I've never been, suicidal, so I can only imagine what, Danny's going through. We don't know that now, of course. We just know he's, there's something going on with him. He's just kind of perturbed by something, but it's very fascinating to find that out later, why he was in such a foul mood. And then to top it off, one thing, what's the Murphy's Law? He can't get his seatbelt right.
Yeah.
There's always something and then he's already in a foul mood, and then boom, the first incident that you know
Sets everything
exactly.
off, yeah.
Thank you so much. Sets everything off into motion when Amy just completely. And how many times has this happened to you? You're in a parking lot and somebody just backs out, or you're backing out and somebody just keeps going. They don't let you go. Who has the right of way? I think the person who's parking does. So it's all a matter of perspective. But who do you empathize with in this situation?
At the moment, I empathize with Danny
Yeah, because we're from his point of view right now.
because Amy's laying on the horn. Okay, I get maybe he backed into her and she's honking. I've honked. But she's laying on the horn, and I understand why she would. Maybe she was startled, caught off guard, angry. But then when she drives past, it that could have been that, but she gives Danny the finger,
Yeah.
and that escalates things.
Sure.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about escalation and letting things go and all of that throughout the course of talking about all these episodes, because there's so many moments, of someone just let it go, or or this or that. It would have been the end of the story,
Yeah.
but this whole series is built on people just keeping it going, and
Right.
and it
Yeah.
makes for an interesting series,
Right.
of course.
It's a perfect word that you used. It encapsulates it. Is escalation. But let me ask you this. It reminds me of an incident in the parking spot episode of Seinfeld, where the two parties are just arguing. No, I had the right of way. I was going into there. I was parking. I was trying to get that spot. I parked head first, but no, you can't park in head first. You got to back it in. So who's at fault here? So who's at fault? Like, did he looked back, right? He looked back, and he didn't see any car come, and then he just went out.
Yeah.
And then she just like stopped and dead in her tracks.
Yeah.
Was she going too fast in a parking lot, or who's at fault there in that instance? You know what I mean?
Right.
What do you think? Hold on. Let's watch it real quick. There's always something. He looked back. He doesn't check both ways though.
Right, and she's
She's
coming
not
from
coming.
the other
She's not
side.
even going that fast.
And
yeah, she just
neither
stops
is
dead
he.
in her tracks.
Neither is he.
So yeah, it's very hard to see who's at fault there. It's very like
Right, and they're both
in a happy medium.
on edge. They're both in very delicate
Yes,
states
thank
of
you.
mind,
Jinx.
and so this story would be very different if either person wasn't, or
Yeah.
neither of them
Right.
were. It would be like, oh, my bad. Okay, drive
Right.
along.
They're
and
in
end of story.
extreme moments of stress.
Yeah.
Amy's we don't realize till later, but yeah, from at this moment of the show, yeah, we definitely empathize more with Danny. He's one after another. All these little frustrations are building up. I think he could have done a little better job of maybe add to more frustration, but it's a 30-minute show, so it's cool that they did it in such a short time. And then he goes after her, right? Yeah, he's like, fuck this. He's like almost like he's fed up with everything at this moment in life. There's always something, and he goes after her, and there's an ensuing car chase in his truck.
And maybe not everyone's been involved in a road rage incident, but I think we can all honestly look back on our life experience and relate to a moment of rage where we lose it. We get sucked into this this madness of anger where we're not thinking straight, thinking logically, thinking carefully or safely or rationally, and we just fly off the handle.
Yeah.
And certainly both parties are doing this as they're
Right.
running over.
He's like, show your face, show your face. This whole time he still doesn't see her face.
Right, and as they're about to cause many car accidents, and they're driving over sidewalks and this and that.
I recently had a road rage incident. Inadvertently, I didn't know that I cut somebody off. I cut someone off. I was going down beach, which is like a semi kind of highway, and then this car in front of me was going so slow, so I went to the next lane. But while I was doing that, I cut somebody off, and I didn't know I did that. But I was, sometimes I drive like that on beach without knowing, and then this person wasn't having that, and for like maybe a few blocks, proceeded to just go drive bumper to bumper with me, and just whenever what do you call that? Tailgate. Yeah, like wherever I went, it would just stuck to me, and then eventually cut me off, and then we got into a light where it's just us two.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know. I just went into the other lane. Then he'd cut me off. I'd go into the other lane. He'd cut me off. Like, I thought it was just a coincidence, but like, oh man, this person's doing this deliberately.
Yeah.
And then we're stuck at a red light. He was in front of me. He cut me off again. And then I was like, okay, maybe this person has a problem with me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just do nothing real quick. And then the light turned green. He flipped me off. He or she flipped me off. I don't want to assume. It could have been a woman. They flipped me off and then just peeled off, and I was just like, I just pulled off for a moment, and, took a breath, and I didn't want to drive and maybe encounter them again. So I was just like, you know what? I've been in that situation where I was pissed off at somebody, and maybe I don't honk. I'm very kind of vindictive, and I'll high beam the shit out of them so that they can't see anything. So yeah, I don't approve of that. So I'm sorry to the people I've done that to, but I've been in that situation where I was the other party. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a step back, calm down, and not engage, and then, go back home later. So have you ever had a similar situation happen to you?
Sure. You get upset, but then your rational self hopefully takes over sooner than later. Right. And you're just like, and maybe sometimes either party just needs to vent, whether it's, flipping someone off or honking or
high beaming the shit out of someone, which I don't condone.
Sure. But, or, saying some choice words and then driving off. Maybe that's what it takes.
That's dangerous.
But if the other party could say, okay, I got that person angry, I'm going to let them have their moment and move on.
Yeah.
Then
it's a sign of growth.
Then, it's over. But if that causes the other person to get angry, like, oh, you're going to do that with me, well, I'm going to do this. Yeah.
And I've been in situations where I cut somebody off or something, and then we're at a light. I think I was late for work, and then this person, like, we're at a light, and this person was like reasonably asking me in a calm demeanor, saying, "Are you trying to get into an accident?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry about that," But that's kind of a cool higher ground to take too, right? Hey, like, are you trying to kill yourself? Like, what are you trying to do here? But it's so weird. Like, driving elicits this like carnal, I don't know, response in us that makes us. I don't know what it is about the road, right? Anyway, let's get back to the episode. So yeah, the whole thing ensues with them running over some plants and driving over people's lawns. Danny cutting Amy off, and to where upon she backs up, drives the other way, and then revs her engine up, backing into him, and we think he's gonna get into a collision. She's like, stop, and she hits the brakes, and before she goes, she flips him off again, I believe. No, she doesn't. But that's when Danny, gets the license plate down. She peels off, and yeah, that's the end of the scene. That's the what sets our entire conflict up for the series. uh, and then she drives off, and then we finally get a glimpse of Amy's face. She's kind of smiling. Um, it feels like she, in that moment where she like, she's like taking a breath.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like she derives some kind of pleasure from that.
Which is a nice segue into Amy, the character, Amy's life, Amy's experiences. And in that moment, she feels like alive. She feels her own agency of controlling things, of winning, of not bowing down to anybody.
That's a good point.
And we see in her life is just, whether it's her work life or her family life or her past, like childhood, we're gonna see that
it makes sense.
It makes sense
that she would derive some kind of
right,
sick, twisted pleasure from all that.
And
most people would be kind of traumatizing.
Right, and kudos to Ali Wong for giving an acting performance where you can kind of see the subtlety of that sly little smirk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell she's still a little bit perturbed by it too, but at the same time she calms down and she gives like a little smirk. You're right. Yeah, that's a great point. And then so after that, and title credits, smash cut to this title, Beef. The birds don't sing; they screech in pain. She parks into her massive, luxurious garage, and an onslaught of texts come up. A bunch of spam, a bunch of articles with Forster's denies Koyo House acquisition rumors. So I love this little like on-screen onslaught of text because it's a very economical way of showing us that she's a busy person. She's getting texts from her employees that are kind of incompetent. Oh, somebody overwatered the cacti. What do I do? She's like, she says something in her mouth like, "Oh, do it yourself, you idiot," or something, right?
Right, and it just shows all of the stresses and demands and stresses of her personal life.
George's mom, I forget her name, Mimi? No, Miki, I forgot. But she texts her, "I have some ideas on how to remodel your house. Running low on coconut milk," George says. And she gets some spam. "Don't forget to enter for a chance to win $500 shopping spree." And then we get our first sign of George. He's in his like full bicycle attire, and he's very interesting to say the least. Seeing that she's in distress. Say, "Are you okay? Did something happen to Forster's?" He's like, "Oh, everything went great."
Right, and he says something very emblematic of his character. He's like, "Before you spiral." And so
it's like, why did you fucking ask me for? I hate when people do that. Like,
and yeah, it's very
I'm about to tell you, I'm about to dive deep into it, and he's like, "Before you spiral, I gotta go real quick."
And it's very condescending, very patronizing.
And then there was this guy.
Before you spiral, I'm gonna have to stop right there.
In a very new age way, like
his thank you for that. Thank you.
Remedy is gratitude journals, and so we can see she, like we were talking about, facing an unsympathetic people that don't make you feel heard. Her own husband makes her feel unheard, and she can't express. She probably wanted just to freely talk about the traumatic experience she had, but he's censoring her and making her.
You're the one who asked, and then I gotta stop you there. I gotta go. It's like, what's the point? But yeah, I love this piece of dialogue because really she's unloading on him, just like telling him about what she's been going through. I've been on meetings and calls for the past 2 years, talking about her pending deal with Koyo House in Jordan, trying to acquire her company, right? And so she's working hard. It's really taking a toll on her, and and she's going deep into this. Amy, before you spiral, I'm gonna have to stop you right there. Take a deep breath, and you could tell the annoyance on her face. You're just like, why? You have to start focusing on the positive. It's like, really, dude? Like, I'm trying to vent here.
Right.
Then-
He's there's no validation of her feelings. The feeling that you can't genuinely, candidly talk about your problems.
Yeah.
We see it affects both Amy and Danny, and we'll go more into their similarities and
Yeah.
common.
Thank you for bringing up the gratitude journals. I completely missed that when I was writing notes down. So, and then we get our first. We meet Junie. I need more markers, and you can tell that's what's pretty much keeping them together, is their mutual love and adoration for their little Junie, who's the cutest kid ever. Before we learn that she bites her teacher. What do you think of the architecture of this house? It reminded me a lot of the Parasite house in a lot of ways, and two of those, both works kind of deal with privilege and
Sure. And so, yeah.
class
Yeah.
conflict, right? So
Yeah. I think modern architecture
Yeah.
equals rich rich people.
right, I'm not huge. I don't know too much about what specific architecture this is, but it is very gargantuan, very foreboding, very just a lot of space, right?
A lot of concrete.
Yes, sure. And then we get our first glimpse into George's piece, which looks like a literal piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like with sprinkles on it. Like, what is that? It looks like a very phallic, like testicles.
Sure, phallic and, like you said, very turd-like. Very, yeah.
And he's like, I guess he's trying to sell it in her store. I don't know what the deal with that is. Or maybe he's talking about something else. I don't know.
No, yeah.
Oh, was he talking about that?
wants to sell his.
Oh, because she owns a gallery. Is it a gallery or is
It's
it
more like a plant, like a fancy plant store with probably nice fancy pots and.
okay? But they also have a gallery for art.
Yeah, although I think he wants to sell it more as like a thing to hold.
Okay, I see.
Plants.
Oh, right. Cool. And then we get our glimpse into Danny here. He's hauling his hibachi grills into the apartment. He's looking for the Forcer's receipt. And Paul's busy. He's in the middle of a game, man. He can't be bothered, right?
Yo, you see a Forcer's receipt anywhere?
I'm in the middle of a game.
A great little encapsulation of their relationship. He's in the middle of a game. Like, pick up after yourself. He's trying to tell him about his day. This guy fucking honked at me and scared the shit out of that motherfucker. He's like, what's wrong with the world today, man? Feel like they want to feel like you have no control.
Which, yeah, that feeling of not having control of your own life. I think Danny says, I'm sick of smiling. Both Danny and Amy, they're beholden to outside forces that make them maybe censor themselves or hold things in or fake things, fake smiles, whatever. And yeah, it's leading to both of them having this inner rage because they're not able to feel like they're in control of their own life. And you could see both of them at the moment where they have their near collision. You could see the rage that they both have. And it's this perfect storm where it's like two people who are just very unsatisfied, repressed, angry on the inside, that they meet. If either of them wasn't, then one of them would relent and be like, "Oh, my bad," or
Yeah,
"Go
yeah.
ahead," or "I'm
Sure,
sorry,"
sure.
or whatever, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would have been that. But yeah, it was just like this cocktail of
Exactly. Yeah. They both need a healthy outlet to
Yeah.
express their rage and anger. Which I guess is the is the message at the end of the day, right? So
right, and getting into the causes of that, and I think people can watch Beef on so many different levels. Like, it's okay, it's two angry people, but people could look at it at a different level, like perhaps on a cultural level. Like, okay, what about their lives as people of Asian background? What might contribute to their rage and feeling that they can't really speak freely
Yeah.
or can't have control of their lives. So
right.
there's all these different facets
Yeah.
and levels that you can look at.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Thank you for bringing that up. We're definitely going to be exploring more of that as we get into the series. I think we'll talk about that in much more detail in the later episodes. But for now, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's something to think about. What we're going to talk about later, right? So, Danny gets a call from his parents. They're FaceTiming, and they pretty much exposition dump here too. They're living in Korea with their uncle. His mom's saying, life's been tough here living with your uncle. His Danny's father doesn't want to work anymore. He's like, why would I? Why would I want to work at my age? I don't even have time to eat breakfast. And that's when you see the struggle with Danny. He's like, he's trying to support them, with his struggling construction business. I don't see how that's going to work out, but he's hustling. He's trying to do his best, and I feel that. I feel that struggle, So I think we all do as kids, right? We want to, if our parents are in that stage of retirement, we want to support them and take care of them, right? And
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Yeah, Danny. One of the forces in his life is tradition and cultural expectation and familial parental expectation.
Yeah.
And later on, not too much later on, we'll talk about this later, I'm sure.
Paul's
but
like the
Paul's
opposite,
like,
yeah.
hey, why are you like stuck
Yeah.
in these, cultural norms and
Yeah.
traditions? Like, just live,
Yeah.
But we see in Danny, he can't. And so when the mom says, I just want you to go to church and marry a Korean girl,
Yeah.
and you could see that Danny's trying to honor his parents
Sure.
and obey what they say. That, again, all of these different forces that make Danny feel like he doesn't have control.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
Right. And in that scene where he's talking about, he's like, oh, Paul's not making any money, and Paul gives in a little dig saying, I just, bought this chain for 2,000. What the fuck did you do? And I really relate to that too, like as I'm more in Danny's generation, but I relate to a lot of Paul's. As the youngest, people are always shitting on you. You always have to. In Asian cultures, in my culture, Vietnamese culture, most Asian cultures, you have to take shit from older people. Like, they always like talk smack on you, or they'll say it's tough love, but you can't ever talk back. You always have to take it. And then I feel for that, because as the youngest, it's gonna be a while for your time to come, and you always have to just kind of take abuse. So, and that's
Right.
what Paul's doing. He's like kind of lashing out at, I'm actually doing something too. I'm worth something. You just don't see it yet.
Yeah.
So him lashing out in that little scene, like, I kind of relate to as well. That's
Yeah,
all I'm saying. So
it's interesting. I think when we first encounter Paul, what we see is trying to get us to see that he's lazy and immature. But we see later on there's more to his character than that, and things that happen to him without, giving too much away, might contribute to what he is. But yeah, just on the surface, first impression, oh, this is a lazy slacker.
Right.
But
He's got aspirations too.
Yeah.
He's got goals. I should have prefaced, in our intro that Edwin and I are both of Asian American descent. I am Vietnamese American. Edwin's Korean American. So probably something we should have addressed in the introduction there. So, but I think people understand how we're talking about Asian American representation. So, yeah, Paul's deep in his crypto. he's he's in the middle of a game, but yeah, he's got like more like millennial Gen Z aspirations, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to work without working,
Yeah.
right? He's trying to make passive income, doing shit that's just trending, right? Just helping all the trends, whereas Danny's more of the old school, like hard work will get you rich, kind of thing, right? And that's where you can see like the generational clash. He's like, give me your passwords. I don't know what you're doing, investing in all this shit. We don't know where it's gonna go. And then if you don't want to do that, you can start paying rent, kind of thing, right? Because he's living there rent free.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. We're not gonna spoil anything, but it's fascinating to know. Because I'm doing this as a rewatch, so I already know it all happens. But seeing this for the first time, it's like Paul's kind of a child, and I'm like, oh man, fuck you, Paul. Like, pay some rent. But then knowing what happens later, you kind of feel for him. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't want to spoil anything. There's a very vague way of veiling that spoiler.
And after they have their argument, disagreement, you could still see that there's a brotherly bond when Danny asks Paul if he's eaten yet.
Yeah. He just
At
smacks the door.
the end of the day, bottom line, they're still brothers, and they care. Danny cares about Paul, and I thought that was
Yeah, that's a good
nice.
point. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Before knowing what happens, seeing this on the first time, I was like, Paul's a petulant fucking child. Like, fuck you, Paul. But yeah, it's really not his fault, as we'll learn later. All right, so we're back. We're here at Koyo House. Is that how you say that? It's a Japanese Koyo House. Amy's eating like some fusion burrito, maybe. Talking on the phone. And we see, what's her name? Maya? Oh,
Mia?
Mia, sorry, thank you, Mia. And saying your husband's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, why is he brilliant? Do you say? Another seed, planting of seeds there.
Yeah, this whole, when I was rewatching the first two episodes to prep for this, after having seen the whole thing, you could see how there's lots of foreshadowing.
Sure,
and
yeah.
little dropping of things that you don't fully realize what they mean.
Which is
till
great
later.
because it definitely shows that they were doing they're, I'm at a loss for words here, but they're doing their due diligence. They're planting the seeds, and they're setting a lot of things up, and it's something that rewards multiple viewings. So
Yeah, and in this part, you could see again how what Danny was talking about. I'm sick of smiling and this and that. I don't control. Amy endures the same thing, where there's an adoring customer who loves, her aesthetic and what she does, and wants to take a selfie. That's not unheard of, but again, Amy doesn't have much agency. She can't say no, even if she felt like it. It wouldn't be good PR, good business. So she's putting on a fake smile.
Yep.
She would rather not. And So again, I think they're really establishing a lot of common bonds, even though they had that really nasty interaction. But they're more same than not.
And before that, I didn't catch this before, but when Mia's like "kumennasai," saying "I'm sorry" in
Yeah.
Japanese, like, she's like that's "I'm sorry" in Japanese. She's like, "Oh, that's great." She's like,
ごめんなさい. What? That means I'm sorry in Japanese, right?
Cool. Thanks.
and it's funny that they show like this condescending attitude of white people. Like we're all Asians, so we should understand. Just because Amy's married to a Japanese person doesn't mean she's Japanese,
Right.
And she just assumes that
Sure.
she understands what that means. Because oh my god, it's so. I have some problems with how they make every white person kind of condescending, especially Jordan. But at the same time, it's kind of funny because we've been enduring that for ages. I'm talking about like Asian
Sure,
Americans
sure.
in film, right? We're always like the caricature.
Sure.
And here's a little bit of payback,
Sure.
So that's kind of funny. We get Danny, and he's on his job. One of his like his clientele that he always his repeat clientele, maybe that he comes back to all often, and he's setting up the Zoom or the Ring for him. And it's funny at the end of that conversation. He's like, "Did you fire that guy yet?" He's so annoying. It's like, how's he annoying? I guess because he tries to like chit chat with him or something,
okay.
right? Because I don't see how that's annoying. He's just being
Sure.
friendly, right? He's just being like what any company would do to a client, right? Just be affable. And then he agrees to trim his his hedges there, even though he's not certified to do that. And then and that's when he overhears like the woman, the wife's like, "Oh, he's so annoying. Did you fire him yet?" Back at the Lau residence. Sorry, is it? I forget George's last name.
I don't.
They call her Amy Lau, but I guess that's her maiden name.
Probably.
Back at the house, back
Yeah.
at the George and Amy house. We at the moment I forget the last name. Takai? Is it Takai?
I don't know.
No, that's George Takai. I'm getting racist here now. It is Amy Lau, so George Nakai.
Nakai. Okay.
Okay, so I was close. I wasn't being too racist and condescending there. Talking to the mom and George. Koya House could be in every Forster's in the country. Again, talking about the expansion, right?
Amy has been working so hard on this sale, Mom. Coil House could be in every Foresters all over the country.
I think that scene just establishes the difference between George and Amy further. George is this privileged, new age, head in the clouds character. Amy's practical.
Yeah.
More.
She works hard for her money.
Right.
She works hard for the money.
More real, life experience.
Yeah.
And
More grounded, right?
grounded, and you could again showing diversity even within this one particular Asian family. They're different in culture, they're different in background, they're different in maybe socioeconomic upbringing, just to show that it's not this monolithic thing.
Right,
and
right.
And it goes for any racial group. They want the differences to be acknowledged and not to be seen as just all the same. And going back to what you were saying about Mia talking in Japanese and expecting maybe either Amy to either understand or be impressed. It's very.
She just like brushes it off like, okay, that's nice. She says all that matters is June thrives to be her truest self. Who says that? I believe George or Fumi says that. George says that. So
All that matters is that June thrives as their truest self.
Well, no one thrives for free.
My sister was a loud eater.
Amy's just worried about in general her well-being, and George is like, again says it's like weird new age shit like she need to be her truest self. Like, what does that even mean, bro? Like, and Fumi gets into this weird anecdote about her sister who eats loud or something. Like rich people problems, right? They're just like on the surface it just seems so minuscule and insignificant, but to them it's like everything. So we see Danny here at a restaurant meeting up with Isaac, and he's got the passwords. He's got Paul's password, so he's looking in his Coinbase account right here and seeing that he's up. I think he's invested about $900, which is about $4,000 in whatever crypto he has here. Bitcoin, I don't think that's a Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's like, I remember he put in like 20 G's in there and he got like 1.1 Bitcoin. So I don't think that's Bitcoin there. Get our introduction of Isaac here. Oh my god, he's so sexy. Dude, so sexy, man, right? We can address the David Cho thing if you want, but for me,
I think it's been well documented and discussed that perhaps we don't need to go into
sure,
it.
sure. I mean, sure. I mean,
it certainly
happened, and it's regrettable,
right? And it needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
I think, it's
there's no
been
place
discussed
for that.
out, in so many outlets that
but
perhaps we don't need to take the time to discuss it. But
sure. I just brush it off because not that I find I agree with what he said, but I just feel like his performance is his performance, and I think he did a fine job, and he's maybe even adds to his kind of menacing criminality of his character, but it doesn't distract to me, all right, so he just got out of prison for 3 months.
3 months out of jail. Thank God for the fucking Filipinos, man. They had my back in there.
I believe this was addressed earlier. Paul said that our cousin ran some shady shit in the motel and got our parents lost the motel and moved back to Korea. So that was addressed in a throwaway line there. But what happened for sure, like in detail, we don't know. We just know it was pretty much Isaac's fault. And right now he feels like he's trying to kind of pay it back. That's why like anytime Danny needs some money, Isaac will come through. And he's like, we didn't even eat yet. Can we just eat something before you ask me for some more money?
Can you lube my fucking pussy up with some kimchi juice before
I'll pay you back.
There's no soup in. I just fucking sat down. We haven't even eaten yet.
Okay.
Can we eat before you do the fucking?
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. My bad.
He's very vulgar.
I like it because throughout the series they represent aspects of Asian American culture without feeling like they need to contextualize it or explain it. It's just they just do it as if the viewer already gets it. And so like when Isaac's like yelling at the servers in the Korean restaurant, anyone who's Korean can be already familiar with that.
Oh, really?
And it's just like, oh yeah, that I get that. That's what I do, or that's what my uncle does, or whatever. It's like, it's like they get it, and I like just the matter of factness of representations of different aspects of Asian culture. throughout the series. And so, yeah, when they're in the Korean restaurant, it's it's like being in a Korean restaurant.
Very cool. Yeah, very authentic, huh? So yeah, Danny proceeds to borrow 20 G's from cousin Isaac and promptly deposits it into Coinbase, which I'm watching the screen right here, $22,044.07 equals 1.1018794 Bitcoin. So approximately 1 Bitcoin for 20 G's. It's a steep number there. And he's up. And things are looking up for Danny here. He's on his way to bring back his parents from Korea back to the States, or so we think. Going to some gallery art exhibit here at Jordan's, right, with George and Amy. And mushroom dinner, by the way. It's very interesting to see what entails of that mushroom dinner. Paul McCartney once said he saw God look like a massive wall. It's apparently what George says. And Amy's like, yeah, say shit like that inside. I like that. She knows what kind of people she's dealing with, right? So
Right, and then there's a part where she hears a car horn and she gets triggered by it, and we see later the same thing happens to Danny.
While he's cutting the hedges off the tree, and he proceeds to fall, right?
And then
yeah, I love that line. The crows love me.
yeah, again,
And again, I didn't get it the first time.
Right,
Like,
who would have picked up on that? On the first view, and again, not to spoil anything, but yeah, just that hint dropping, foreshadowing.
I believe Amy says something about crows too. Like she's
Well,
like in her patio.
she threatens some crows.
Yeah.
At the beginning
So
of
she has some
episode
bad karma with
2.
some. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm getting ahead of myself.
Danny's got the good karma.
Yeah.
Amy's got the bad.
Yeah. Danny thinks he sees the car, right?
Yeah.
Her car, and then he just slips off. And good job, Paul. What are you even doing there? He's so useless. You can tell, yeah, he's like of that generation where he's like, I want to work smart, I want to work with my mind. And you could tell like the way he looks at Danny, like he looks at him with such disdain, like, why are you hustling? Why are you doing all this stuff when you could be,
He sees him as a loser.
Yeah. He's like, my boy's picking me up. He's like, Uber for Paul. So awkward. So yeah, we're back at it's like a cult back at Jordan's, right? It's like this weird triangle set up for dinner. And they got like some weird, it's a mushroom pizza. That's what George says, right? But it's like weird like foam dripping into it.
Yeah.
What is, I'd never seen that before. What is that? It looks like some...
Yeah, it's probably some molecular gastronomy where it's like got the essence of mushroom.
Okay. And she's like telling George, like, they're just regular mushrooms. This is so stupid. As my father used to say, you can eat any mushroom once. What does that even mean? George is laughing for some reason. Yeah. So what do you make of this scene here?
Yeah, you can just see again Amy, her just kind of her practical self, just going through the motions of having to do what she needs to do business wise, but she can't relate to this pretension of these fancy rich people party stuff, and but again she's faking it, she's pretending, smiling when she doesn't want to, all that stuff. So
and we get here I love this episode because it's cross-cutting back between Danny and Amy, and it's just showing their workaday lives. It's just kind of monotonous for them. Danny's at a piece of land, calling the company trying to secure the piece of land to construct the home for
Yeah.
his parents. And while he's doing this, he's eating like 5 Burger King
I was
sandwiches. I was getting
sincerely.
heartburn just
Well, I was
watching
like
him.
concerned about him. Like, Danny, what's.
It looks
I-
like he's having heartburn
like,
while eating it.
I like eating too, and I've been known to eat a lot, but I was like, whoa, Danny, are you okay? Like,
Yeah, it looked like Brendan Fraser's character in The Whale when he was trying to actually kill. Oh, sorry, spoilers for The Whale, but he kind of tries to eat himself to death. And it looks like Danny's doing the same thing.
so yeah, while I was watching, I'm like, okay, what's the significance of this? Is he like stress eating? Is he's like, what's going on here? But he came with all that food, so it was before. Was he anticipating a stressful situation? I don't know, but he came with all all of those.
No, it's supposed to be ironically, it's supposed to be stress relieving.
Yeah.
But this added stress of he doesn't have enough credit to
Yeah.
acquire the piece of land causes him to eat more and then gets him heartburn.
Yeah.
You better get some Alka-Seltzer or Pepto there,
Yes.
but he should have like a bottle in his pocket just to down while he's eating this thing, because Jesus Christ. Yeah, it doesn't look very healthy there, buddy. Yeah, he's calling multiple like property companies. Just downing fries.
Drowning his sorrows and
Drowning his
griefs.
sorrows with like not even 1 or 2, which is enough for any normal. He's like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Dude,
Is
like wow.
this the scene where he checks Paul's? Yeah.
Yeah, the Bitcoin.
And then
he's down now.
so again, I don't know if he says it's always something, but
He does. He says it multiple times.
again, it's like
there's always
this
something. What the fuck?
constant frustration. It's like
Yeah.
nothing can go right. He can't catch a break, and
Yeah. It's very reminiscent to me. I know I said this to you off camera or off microphone, but this whole series reminds me of Breaking Bad, of like the struggle of I don't know what you call that, like repressed masculinity, but like stunted masculinity. Where like you just can't get over the hump.
Yeah.
You're just beaten down by life. You're not assertive. You're not confident. Life is just grabbing you by the balls.
Sure.
And you need something. I guess you just need to be beaten down enough to where you're just like, fuck this. I'm going to do my own thing and grab life by the horns. So, Breaking Bad did that within multiple seasons. So you kind of, I'm not giving anything too much away, but you really relate to Walter White's plight. You're like, oh shit, when is he going to catch a break? And then when he finally like takes control, you feel good. You feel like empowered, because you've been through the struggles with him for so long. So I feel like this series does something very similar with Danny and even Amy, so both characters are very kind of beaten down by life, and then they kind of take control. So going back to Jordan's little dinner here, and they're still discussing, the ongoing deal to acquire Koyo House, and she's like, I expect a term sheet tomorrow, and it just feels like she's stringing her along. It's like for reasons we're not, it's very clear yet, but you could tell like she likes kind of doing that too. She likes doing this to people, maybe to people of Asiatic origins in particular, but she loves to play around and tease them, and I don't know, it's just what she likes to do, so
right.
I get that kind of sense. I didn't get that at first, I was still kind of wrapping my head around the plot mechanisms of.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
She's not a very, I don't know, trustworthy person. She said, I don't even like mushrooms, and the whole dinner was about mushrooms.
Right.
So again, she's posturing, posing, doing, what's supposed to be cool, but she doesn't even like it.
Yeah. And, we get back to Amy at home looking at that incident on the Nextdoor app of the road rage incident. and then we see her tug Junie, and Junie has a bad dream. All the scenes with June so far are very tender. It always seems like that's her like escape. You know, that's her it's her constant state of well being of happiness. Right?
Yeah, Amy's genuinely happiest when she's with Junie, and when Amy's trying to soothe Junie and she really is describing her personal happy space. She mentions, no emails, no pretending.
Yeah.
And
giving birth
just
to her,
that
right?
that theme of just living without all of these pressures that are like sucking the life out of you, and not being able to be your true self, like having to fake things and pretend, and always being subservient to everybody else. She wants to break free from that, but she doesn't feel the power to do so.
Right.
So she can only idealize it as like some kind of paradise.
Exactly. No, I like the way you describe it. It is her personal happy space. I wrote here that June's delivery date was like a very tranquil moment for Amy, and that's a great way of putting it. It's her happy space. Like whenever she feels stressed, maybe she'll go back to that moment where she's giving birth to Junie at 4 a.m. and the whole city was silent, as she says, and it's a great way to, you're right. No meetings, no emails. She says, no pretending. So I didn't really. It really kind of went over my head when I saw it for the first time. I didn't really, sympathize with her plight. But watching it now, like, it's very well articulated her struggles, and the episode does a really good job of doing that for characterizing Amy's struggles. And great job and great delivery by Ali Wong there. Danny, very dark moment for him. He's in his room, got all the hibachi grills fired up, Googling the least painful way to die. I didn't even know that was available. You'd think that would not be readily available, but I guess anything is available on the internet these days, right? So to ensure high CO levels, he's going through every, step-by-step detail on the Reddit or whatever he's on. And something clips. He's like, no, he's not feeling it, right? This is not it. Shuts everything down. What triggers that? I'm trying to go back and. So he's closing his eyes. He's like breathing the CO levels in, and he's all of a sudden he's like, this isn't it, right?
Yeah.
He closes and shuts everything off.
Maybe there's a lot to read into that. It could be that Danny really doesn't want to die, like most people don't want to die. But at the same time, he can't deal with the issues that's, making him want to ultimately escape. Or on the flip side, even in this way, committing suicide, he doesn't have full control over that either.
Right,
so I don't know. There's.
What do you think like tipped him over the edge? It was the Bitcoin thing, right? And like just like not being able to secure the land, having enough credit, and then being fired from like maybe his only client, just like loss after loss, right? Taking so many L's in the day, and then not being able to pay back cousin Isaac, probably set him over the edge, I guess, right?
Yeah. Again, it's just establishing these characters of just having to suffer through these series of, like you said, just L's and just one thing after another.
Right. Back with Amy, and George is asking her like, "Why are you trying to open the safe?" Is another issue we'll get into more of. I think in the same episode, right, is when she actually opens the safe. Yeah, later on. Okay, yeah. Danny. Oh yeah. By the way, after he opened up all the windows, he actually looks up the license plate of Amy, and then looking for a house now. I guess that's what do they say? I think. Well, they said that in Obi-Wan, where it's like my anger kept me alive. Right? Is when like the infiltrator, one of the inquisitors who was dying, said like revenge is a great motivating factor to keep me alive. So I guess that's what kind of motivated Danny to be alive, is the revenge against the person who wronged him on the road rage incident. Cross-cutting with Amy, she finds the gun, she opens it up, and then she proceeds to have like a little very masturbatory, well, not masturbatory, she's masturbating
She's
with the gun.
Definitely getting aroused, for sure. And I saw that as the gun being a symbol of power, where when she's holding that gun, she's not weak, she doesn't have to back down, people will cower for her rather than the other way around. And so that's very arousing, intoxicating.
Sure. And it also could be seen as like rage is like a very primal emotion, and it also links back to the when she was in that road rage incident, she felt alive, and it takes her away from this kind of mundane mediocrity of emails, calls, meetings, and then something exciting finally comes out of her very depressing life, right?
And
so, and even she even says, I don't know if it's this episode, but later she calls. I'll get to that later. Yeah, no, it's in the next episode. So, but no, sorry. Go ahead.
And before that, she tries to open the safe, but
Why were you opening the safe?
Well, been seeing all these next door posts, and people are freaking crazy out there.
Well, I changed the combo.
Oh, well, maybe you don't think like I should have a new combo? What if something bad happens, like someone follows me home or something?
Amy, you know why I didn't tell you?
She sees that George changed the combo
And
without telling her, so you can see there's trust issues in.
Well, he has a reason. And it's undisclosed,
right?
But you could tell he has some kind of reason where she tried to get into it before,
right?
And it caused some kind of issue.
So again, another thing for whatever reason of people trying to control her and keep things from her where she can't get to the things she really wants to. And so when she finally gets it, she's like, yeah, I got it now, I'm in control. And you tried to stifle me, but I'm getting the last laugh. I got it. So you and again, I guess that's the purpose of the first episode, is really to establish these characters, and so you can see how Amy's mind is working.
So one of the final scenes here, I think this is the final scene where Danny kind of cons himself into getting into Amy's residence, saying he's just noticed passing by, I'm just working on a contract next down the street, that something about your roof conduits, and then
I believe she says there's always something.
Right. Okay. Yeah. She says something to that effect. Okay.
When he says.
Oh, when he says something about the garage.
Yeah. There's some. Yeah.
There's like some kind of moisture, and then she says there's always something. He's like, yeah, there is, or something. So you can tell like they have the same problems almost, but very like spiritual.
Yeah, and as like an outsider watching the show, you're like, if they could just see what they have in common, they're on the same, the same plane, they're on the same team. Struggles. It's like they should bond, but no, they have this issue that's.
When he says he's Japanese, did you get some kind of malicious? Intentions of that?
When Dan's
like, he's Japanese.
Yeah,
I did. I mean, he just said he's Japanese. He's just like pointing something out. But I guess Amy said back to George, like, hey, he seemed to have a problem with you being Japanese. I don't know. Maybe she read into that, or maybe he's just giving him like
No,
an excuse
I
to hate
think
him.
between Koreans
Oh,
and
yeah,
Japanese,
okay.
there is historical.
Because of the Japanese colonialism.
Yeah,
Back in the-
and
okay.
so there's definitely historical problems.
Okay. But yeah, in that moment, I didn't see him like kind of throw shade at Japanese people at all. But I guess she just read
Well,
into
yeah,
it.
later on she kind of uses it to her
She
benefit.
she kind of built it up, right? He talks about like the wood is absorbing the moisture. There's always something.
Yeah, I definitely see some warp here.
I'm sorry. Are you serious right now?
Yeah, they're just like, it's just absorbing all this moisture.
Fuck. There's always something.
Yes, there's always something.
So it's all building up to the ending of the episode. Where
Yeah, well, in that conversation in the garage, like he's like pretending to give a shit and asking him, "Oh, so your husband drives his car?" And she's like, "No, that's actually my car." And then that's when it clicks to with Danny saying, "Oh shit, that was her."
Yeah.
And then that's when he says, "Do you mind if I use your restroom?"
Yeah.
And then boom.
And at this point, Danny thinks, okay, this is the last laugh. I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
get, and maybe even
It's gonna end there.
say, yeah, okay, I came out on top. This is done. I got my revenge.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Amy was, when she drove off and she's got the little smirk. Like, they all think that they got,
Yeah. The upper hand.
the capper at the end,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we see that it only just makes things worse.
Right. We get a cool music cue here. We got to mention, but the whole soundtrack is filled with cool '90s alt rock. I'll look it up later, but yeah, nice bathroom by the way. But it's not looking so good after Danny's urine all over the tiles and the porcelain, and then she runs after him. Then we hear the hue there, and he's like laughing while he's running away. And then she, the same way he got her license plate while she's driving away, she gets his license plate while he's driving away, right? So that's the way the episode ends. Push in on Ali Wong, kind of smiling, and end credits there, directed by Hikari. I don't know who that is, but he did a good job. Very a bit long of an episode, 39 minutes, but I think it is justified. Being the first episode, I had to establish both of these characters. So final thoughts on the episode, and what is your? We're doing instead of final for our final rating, we're doing a Yelp review, 4 out of 5 stars in conjunction with the @show service Yelp review here. So, what are your final thoughts and your Yelp review of the episode, Edwin?
I think the first episode accomplished a lot, establishing the main cause of the beef and also establishing the characters. So I will give it a 4.5 stars.
Oh, okay. Great. Awesome. And by the way, that end credit needle drop was The Reason by Hoobastank. And I did not know that Today by the Smashing Pumpkins was in the official trailer. So great establishment of, the soundtrack there. Yeah, I got to agree with you. A great setup episode. I didn't really appreciate it the first time I saw it. It hooked me. But seeing it now, knowing what happens, getting all the, like you said, all the nooks and crannies, the what do you call that? The foreshadowing,
Yeah.
and all the nooks and crannies there makes it for very compelling viewing on rewatch. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's still, setting a lot of things up. So no room to be like flamboyant or like very shocking yet and provocative, but it's a great character study, and I didn't really see this the first time, but the cross-cutting between the two lives and kind of juxtaposing, as well as showing the similarities of their struggles in life. They did a really great job of that. So yeah, it's a great episode to start things off. So, looking forward to talking about the rest of the episodes with you, Edwin.
All right, me too.
And with that, thank you guys for listening. Listen to more episodes on The Laser Boy. Just type in The Laser Boy on YouTube. Email us at thelazerboyblogger@gmail.com. That's The Laser Boy with a Z. And we will see you guys for episode 2, The Rapture of Being Alive. Thank you, Edwin, for joining me.
All right, see you next time.
See you guys.
Hey, thanks again for everything. We should exchange numbers and
I'm
keep in
late for an
touch.
appointment right now, so I gotta
Oh.
go. Bye.